I'm Tenitra Batiste, and if you're Tua Tagovailoa and you're looking to get right like he did with Alabama in 2017, just come through the bends. Matter of fact, if you want to get your team right, maybe this might be the area code to drop into.
I love that Kirk Cousins is the perfect backup. He laid down for this team. They were worried about a quarterback controversy, and Kirk was like, "No, I'm going to lay an egg in this team. I'm going to prop up Michael Penix." You love to see it. You love to see it.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and that was trash.
ATL! ATL!
Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me, our Locked On Falcons host, Aaron Freeman, and Locked On analyst, Jarvis Davis. The Squad Show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, the Falcons were on their heels from the Dolphins' opening 8-minute, 33-second drive. We'll download on how the defense let that and a lot more happen on their watch today. And how are Zac Robinson going to handle the mounting injuries? We'll give you our thoughts. But first, let's talk about a dumbfounding, mind-blowing 34-10 loss to the lowly Miami Dolphins. Guys, I never thought this was going to be the conversation that we were having today. Now, let me preface by saying this. When we spoke about this on Thursday's Squad Show, we did say that it seemed like, I asked you guys, I said, seems like a little trepidation. Didn't seem like you guys were 100% confident. And you guys, along with our Thursday Squad Show co-host and analyst Maria Martin, had very good reasons for your levels of concern and not being 100% that this was going to be a bounce back game for the Falcons. Turned out not to be anything close, Jarvis. In fact, let's start on the offensive side of the ball. 9 attempts, 10 yards on the ground against the 32nd worst. That would mean last defense in all of football in the Miami Dolphins. So how in the world was this defense able to contain Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, keep them from going downhill, getting to the second level, and getting any rhythm today?
You mean to tell me that Cardale Hodge is the number one wide receiver? That he should be getting fade balls on fourth down because he's the go-to man? He's not going to make a play for this offense? You mean to tell me that did not work? You mean to tell me David Seals, a practice squad wide receiver, he wasn't the guy. He was a wide receiver one that could get the job done today? Oh, or was it the fact that the Falcons went run, pass? Like consistently on series of downs. Oh, the Miami Dolphins played man coverage for most of the game. Oh, we couldn't figure out a way to beat that. Oh, they had no reason to not play well today. Cardale Hodge, number one wide receiver. We knew that coming into this game. David Seals, oh yeah, he's the guy. He's gonna be man coverage. Yep, absolutely. Kyle Pitts, yeah, he's gonna be man coverage. Yeah, Petit, but in all though, when you think about all those things I just laid out,
yeah,
is you knew coming in, you knew those things. You knew Drake London wasn't gonna be here. You knew that the tape was out on you when it comes to playing man coverage.
Yeah.
Like teams are daring you to beat man.
Yeah.
And in actuality, as a play call, that's what you want. You want that because most of the time you got a guy in your wide receiver group that can beat it. That they're going to make a play, and this just falls on Zac Robinson's head. The plan, man, it was trash. It was trash. The game plan today was absolute trash. And then I point to a game plan that worked out so well. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later on, but what Mike McDaniels did was the same exact thing that Kyle Shanahan did last week. 21 personnel, 22 personnel, counter, power, coming right at you. Football is not this hard. Coaches make it hard. A famous philosopher, Rand Michael, said that once. Like, man, football is easy. Coaches make it hard. It's not. It's not this hard. It's not this hard. And for Zac Robinson to come into this game with this type of game plan, with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, knowing this looks like that Steelers game.
Yeah.
You stand in that doggone pistol and set the guy in the motion here, set the guy in the motion there. But we know what you're doing. We know exactly what you're doing. And you just, and here we go again. The Falcons got punched in the mouth and they had no response.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's very, very fair, Jarvis, because that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like the Miami Dolphins said, wait a minute, we have seen the blueprint of how to get ahead and like really how to put our stamp on a game early. 8 minutes and 33 seconds, 13 plays in their opening drive is what we saw from Miami. And it was just, I mean, it was unbelievable. And of course, like we said, we're going to come back to the defensive side as well. But troubling for me, Aaron, on the offensive side of the ball, okay, fine. Miami, you run down the field, like literally, and you score the first touchdown. But I thought, Aaron, that the Falcons were supposed to be able to do something, coming back to the Benz, kind of resetting themselves, if you will, and resetting themselves behind a philosophy of give Bijan the ball, give Tyler the ball. So why didn't it work?
Because the Falcons aren't that good, T. That's basically what we found out today. Because you saw those first two plays, they ran the ball to Bijan, they got 0 yards. Yeah. And they didn't have really any success thereafter, after that point, running the football. And, like that was going to be the question. This was, as you said, T, this is the worst run defense in the NFL based off of whatever metric you're looking at.
Yeah.
And the expectation was, okay, don't overcomplicate this thing. You don't have a Drake London, so you have Kirk Cousins. Just run the football, win the battle in the trenches, line up and kick the butt of this Dolphins front, whether we're talking about defensively or offensively. And the Falcons couldn't do it. And the reason why they couldn't do it, they got their butts kicked, last week against the 49ers, is because they're just not that good. They don't have the players to go out there and set the tone from a physicality standpoint. Now, again, that's not a new revelation with the Atlanta Falcons. That has been a consistent theme the last few years where they haven't been able. Now, we've mostly focused on the defensive side when it's come to not being able to win in the trenches. But the offensive line, it started off the season well, and it's come back down to earth. And all of our worst case scenarios when it came to, is this offensive line going to be able to run the football without Caleb McGarry? And for, 6 games, it seemed like that wasn't going to be as big an issue as we thought it was. But it kind of sort of, came down to it in this game. And at this point, if you can't beat this Dolphins defense in the trenches, like, you don't deserve to win games. And I don't have any respect or any confidence that you can do this against any other team, because if you couldn't do this against this defense, then why would I expect you to be able to do it against any other team? So whatever juice the Falcons had in terms of their run game ran out, and they're back to being just a bad offense and all the things, just nobody showed up to play, all that stuff. But we'll unpack that as this thing goes.
And I'll talk about and we'll talk about rather Storm Norton going down and how the impact of even someone who maybe could have brought some help or some impact maybe late in the game wasn't there. But we can't rest everything all on injuries, because we know we're at that point in the league where you're starting to slowly but surely see it, especially as you approach the trade deadline. But that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother show. Now, Free mentioned it, Jarvis, so I want to go back to it. He said in his open that Kirk Cousins was determined to ensure there would be no QB controversy with Michael Penix Jr. out today, and did, because he just went 21 of 31 for 173 yards. And even those numbers are probably not telling the full tale, because some of them came on what would be considered sort of like a garbage touchdown at the end of the game, meaning that the game was out of hand by that time and out of reach by that time. So when you look back at that, I mean, why did man defense work so very well again against the lowly Dolphins defense? Like, why couldn't Kirk Cousins and this passing game get anything going?
Because when guys did get open, he couldn't make a throw. I think it was Darnell Mooney hit that little post. As soon as he broke in, it was almost like, yeah, I know this ball is going to be right here, hitting in my chest, and I'm gonna take it to the house. But that was where that was. And that ball, I'm 6'5". That ball was easily 12 feet in the air.
Yeah, like you couldn't even climb the ladder, right, Jarvis?
Like Darnell Mooney couldn't even act like he could have dunked his way if he was going up for a dunk and caught that ball.
Is that the worst miss? Is that the worst miss we've seen? Even worse than any of the Mariota misses? That had to be, right?
Hands down. It was awful. I was literally sitting in the press box trying to contain myself, Free, because I'm like, okay, you're supposed to, remain calm, watch the game, send out my little tweets, get everything ready for the show and all that stuff. But I had to kind of turn away and look down because that was such a terrible pass. It was awful. Kirk looked like he was about 40 years old, 45. I'm sorry, excuse me, 50. I'm doing this like how many points I expected the Falcons to score this year. I'm just going up 60. He looked like he was a 60-year-old quarterback today. He just looked
had never ever thrown a ball to Darnell Mooney or
like he just met him. I'm like, bro, you almost threw 1,000 yards worth of passes to him last year, sir. Like y'all didn't you didn't just get here. This is not Baker Mayfield for the Los Angeles Rams. You know what I'm saying, on a Thursday night. Like you didn't just pull up, bro. You been here. You don't know who Darnell Mooney is? Like, come on. So that was just absolutely terrible. And for people, I mean, I know some people in the comments talking about how this was a showcase game. Folks, let me tell y'all something. There is no way that the Falcons wanted to play Kirk Cousins.
Yeah,
they had to play Kirk Cousins. If Michael Penix was anywhere near healthy, I promise you, 9 would have been in the game. And look at this offense with 9 not being in the game. You think they were struggling dead? At least Michael Penix, we know he's gonna play good at home. Kirk Cousins, it don't matter where he played. That was stinky.
It's just not good.
Stinky.
I mean, it was painful. I mean, it was painful to watch everything from the Falcons going 0-5 on third down in the first half to them having 9 3-and-outs this season before today. And then all of a sudden going even through like midway or a third of the way through the third quarter, having 5 3-and-outs. I mean, you just look at the futility of the offense. I mean, it was a head scratcher.
Yeah. There were 3 possible outcomes for this game. Kirk would play well and the Falcons would win and we would have potentially a quarterback controversy on our hands, whether we should have a quarterback controversy, but it was going to be a talking point at this stage because everything's a talking point with this team. The other option was Kirk would not play well, but the Falcons would still find a way to win. And we would be like, okay, well, it's not a quarterback controversy. Penix is going to get his job back.
Right.
And things are rolling. Yeah. And then the most Falcon-y outcome was like, oh, this is on the table for the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk's going to play poorly and they're going to lose this game. That's the way it's likely going to go. And I appreciate you, Kirk. Man, you're doing the Lord's work. You're out here, not allowing anybody to come for Michael Penix's job. This guy is the best teammate there is possible, right? He's out there just stinking up the joint and making sure that no one ever is going to question whether or not Michael Penix is going to be the starting quarterback for this football team. So you got to appreciate it. It was started with a Netflix documentary. We saw Kirk, going out there and taking that L last year and taking those scout team reps. This man is the ultimate teammate, right? He got all this money from Arthur Blank and he's like, I'm going to pay you guys back. I'm going to support this young quarterback to the best of my ability so that the next time I take the field, I am absolutely going to stink up the joint. So no one, not a single person is out here clamoring for the Falcons to bench Michael Penix, and I love it. He saw all the heat that Michael Penix was taking this week, and he said, I will fall on that grenade. And that's what you got to love about Kirk Cousins. He is a great teammate. So I don't want to hear any more slander about Kirk Cousins being a bad teammate and being selfish and stealing money from the team. This man is the ultimate team player, and I love you for it, Kirk. I appreciate you. You will always have a space in my heart for what you did for Michael Penix on this Sunday.
Yeah. Because if nothing else, you solidified that you ain't the answer. But sadly, you did it too close to the trade deadline, because that means that the Falcons are probably going to be saddled with Kirk Cousins for the rest of the season, because ain't nobody going to be checking for him after this game today. But Jarvis, Aaron, real talk. Who was this game? And I know everybody, there's no blame to go around. Everybody can take a little piece of it today, but who is it more on? Coaching and Zac Robinson's strategy, or player execution?
For me, it has to be strategy. I think the game plan was not good. When you have, of course, when you go into a football game, you want to run the football, right? But you have to get creative at some point with it. Like I hate to use Mike McDaniel as an example, but like this is what it is. Yeah. He had Devon Achane line up in the slot, motioning back into the backfield and getting him the football out of the backfield, even though they were having success running the football, when you could just turn around and hand it off and get in the heavy package and you're going to have success with it. He knew he had that in his bag, but he was figuring out ways to get Devon Achane the football in different ways out of the backfield. Hey, Devon Achane is nothing compared to Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson is one of the more, if not the most talented running back in the league. If you're having issues running the football, which you have had in the past couple games, figure out other ways to get him the football. Get the defense to thinking that you're going to do other things on first down versus sending that dog on pistol with that 65-year-old quarterback and turning around and handing it off to number 7. So I just feel like, again, I've been saying this and I'm going to continue to say it till I see something different.
Sure.
When this offense cannot run the football, Zac Robinson does not have an answer. So yes, a big part of it is game planning, and because if you aren't able to give an answer to your players, Jeff Ulbrich said this himself. If I don't have an answer when these guys come to the sidelines, I deserve to be fired.
Yeah, what I'll say is this. It's more on, as Jarvis said, the coaches than it is the execution. They're both terrible, right? The Falcons, to me, went back to a basic thing. They were like, okay, our offense is struggling. Let's get back to basics. Let's run the football to Bijan Robinson. And they couldn't go out there and execute a very basic game plan against a 1-6 Dolphins team. And understandably, if this team was actually good, they should have been able to just, hey, we don't need to overcomplicate it. We just need to simplify it, run the damn ball, and let's get out here with an ugly 17-13 win. That's what should have happened on this particular Sunday. But as Jarvis said, like, they couldn't execute a basic game plan. And when it came time to, okay, well, you can't run the football and you need to make adjustments to see if you can fix this offense, they didn't successfully make any of those adjustments. And it goes back to what Jarvis said, where we had a couple of games earlier this season against Washington and against Buffalo where I thought Zac Robinson called a very good game, right? But for most part this season, right, their best answer when their offense is struggling is to be able to run the football, and they could not execute that. And so once you take away that answer, as the Dolphins did effectively on this particular Sunday, they don't have good answers. They don't have an ability to sort of pivot off of that. Okay, well, we have a second strength of this team other than, as they did today, just throwing checkdowns and the Dolphins just rallying to the football and, not being able to get, keep the chains moving, all that stuff. So, it's, to me, it's mostly on coaching, but like at the end of the day, the execution was god awful in this game. And it just a complete, utter team failure from top to bottom, from the coaches down to the players. We'll see if the Falcons can figure it out, but there's no real reason to have any hope at this stage in the season.
Yeah. And as a result of an all-around failure, we saw one of the largest margins of victory from an opponent in the history of the Benz. We'll talk more about that when we take it under further review. This episode of our Falcons Squad postcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Now, if you've been using Prize Picks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs, that can actually be pretty darn exciting because it keeps every game that way. And if you like picking your favorite players to do well, let's see how many predictions actually play out. And the new stats feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on, say, Steph Curry's points, threes, and even assists in the same lineup. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. This episode of our Atlanta Falcons Squad show is also brought to you by Rougiette. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress, I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougiette makes it to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. It's that easy. And if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. So visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. And don't forget to use the code LockedOnMLB so they know we sent you. Rougiette, stop making excuses, start making moves. So free, the Falcons are one of the least penalized teams and penalized for the fewest yards per penalty in the NFL. And we're going to talk about that because they had 6 penalties for 61 yards. And that was just through like the very early portion of the third quarter. The reason I mention that is because when I look at where this team landed on the defensive side of the ball, and really it's penalties overall, obviously, because they end up with 9 penalties for 76 yards, the Falcons did today, but a lot more than we're accustomed to seeing on defense in particular. When you look at Jeff Ulbrich's unit, why did it look so undisciplined?
T, if I had the answer, I'd be, wouldn't be here talking to you on this podcast. I'm sorry, but I'll hopefully be making a nice consulting fee somewhere else. But talking about a winning football team, like, hey, but
right.
I'm here stuck with talking about the Falcons. But it was a sloppy performance from the Falcons defense. They looked out of sorts from pretty much the jump. They came out with like a 3-and-out, and then after that point, Miami seemed like, oh, okay, like we got this thing figured out. And you saw too many instances where this defense kept shooting themselves in the foot, with some penalties, some DPIs to prevent them from getting stops. It just overall was a very sloppy performance. And, we're 2 weeks removed from a, playoff caliber defense that we saw against the Bills, where we're like, this is the proof in the pudding. This is the one of the best defenses in the NFL. And it's been downhill ever since. And, this is probably rock bottom for this football team. Like we gave the excuse last week where the defense didn't play terribly, but it was like, oh, well, that's Kyle Shanahan and he had a good formula. And as Jarvis said, they put out the formula. Hey, run the football, quick passing game. And this defense just doesn't really have what it takes to hold up. If you can execute that type of offense, Dolphins, kudos to them. They went out and executed their game plan pretty much flawlessly in this game. And, the Falcons did really nothing. Like, basically when JD Bertrand and Jesse Bates ran into each other on that, tip screen interception that would have gotten a stop and would have prevented a Dolphins field goal in the second quarter. That was kind of the game in a nutshell, where it's like every opportunity this team had to do something, defensively, offensively, whatever, they did not take advantage of that opportunity, and it manifested in the penalties were part of that.
Yeah, I mean, at every turn, it just seemed like Miami reminded you of like world beater type performances that you hadn't seen in a minute, like Tua Tagovailoa. It wasn't so much the yardage, Jarvis, but it was just the way he was able to carve up the defense with just sometimes just a dink and a dunk or a check down, like 20 of 26 for 205 yards. Not a big deal, except when it results in 4 touchdowns passing. Then it becomes a thing. And then when you kind of look at, what they were able to do on the ground, 141 yards total and receiving, obviously Jalen Waddle just a hair short of a 100-yard game. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those where instead of Tua kind of showing up today like he had shown up for the entirety of the season so far, he was looking like the guy who won a national championship in the Benz about 8 years ago, right? And you just kind of wonder, like, how was he able to torch the Falcons defense like that?
It's easy to torch the defense when you got no pressure on you. Where was James Pierce-Jr.? Where was Leonard Floyd? Where was Ruka Rororo? Where was David Onyemata? I ain't seen anybody get off block today when they dropped back the pass. Sure didn't see anybody get off a block when they were running the football. And Free, I was calm. So you mentioned that young man's name. And I'm not going to mention his name. We're just going to replace his number. His number was trash today. Trash couldn't come downhill and recognize there was a run. They were running the football. Trash was sitting there shuffling his feet when the quarterback had handled the football already. Trash was sitting there guarding grass when they dropped back the pass. And he had no idea that people run routes behind linebackers in the NFL. No, he had no clue. He had no clue that they do stuff like that.
You talking about Steve Rogers? Captain America? Hail Hydra?
Number trash. Number trash.
Okay.
Number trash. Number trash. That's what I'm talking about. Number trash. I will not say that man's name. I will not say it because that was awful. Do you know how many tackles Trash had? Trash had 9 tackles. Y'all think that was any of those? You think any of those were behind the line of scrimmage, at the 0-1 yard line? Y'all think any of those tackles were there were any significance to those tackles at all? I answer for you. No, absolutely not. Because it seems like Mike McDaniels just magically figured out a way to get Devon Achane matched up on him. He magically figured out a way to get him matched up on Caden Ellis. No shade towards Caden Ellis. I know what he is. Caden brings a certain value to this team that he wasn't able to tap into today because of the injury to Divine Diablo. So I give him a little pass on that.
Right.
But guess what? Mike McDaniels
not getting help anywhere else for those who did suit up today.
Right. Exactly. But he was there. He was making plays. He was making plays at the +1. Right? Like he was making plays. He was getting there, knifing in there and getting behind those guards that were trying to get up to the second level to get A-Chain loose or Ali Gordon loose. But yeah, trash was trash. That I don't understand why the man was still in the game. Come on, I got a little excited when Ulbrich coming out of the half. He went to an even front, almost essentially a 4-3. You had Ronnie Harrison up there at the outside linebacker, and it looked pretty doggone good. But oh my gosh, what happened to it? It disappeared. I ain't see it again. I got to look at the film to see if he threw it out there again. But based off the naked eye, like I said this, Divine Diablo injury was going to be bigger than any injury on that wide receiver core. This was before the Falcons magically put Drake London on the injury report on Saturday and found out he had a hip injury and he did not play today. But, man, I don't see any light on this defense side of football right now. I don't. You got your 2 rookies who you came into the season that you're counting on. It don't look like no Jalen Walker gonna be back anytime soon. Billy Bowman, he been having hamstring injury for the past couple weeks, You know, like he coming back anytime soon.
Right.
Where's the light?
Where's the light? Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about like the pressure. I mean, other than that one sack early on, it really wasn't there. And I mean, 1-2 QB hits, not exactly world beater, if you will. And, you know, there were moments where it's like, okay, well, so Mike McDaniel, you'll just do something basic. You'll just throw 6 linemen up there and keep saying, hey, dare you to stop us to run. Double dog dare you. I mean, in every way, the Dolphins were just winning in the trenches against this defense.
It's a tough look for the Locked On Falcons podcast because we had a guest on this week by the name of Jarvis Davis who was like, hey, Free, what about this Mike McDaniel being the offensive coordinator? I'm like, what has he done without Tyreek Hill? And then I saw what he did without Tyreek Hill today. He basically was like, number 40, let's go after him. Yeah. Number 21, let's go after him. This was a Kyle Shanahan blueprint. That's what the 49ers did last week. Yeah. They just went after,
literally.
They circled 2 weaknesses on the Falcons defense, and we're just like, we're just going to make them be forced to make plays, and they didn't make the plays. I don't get mad at Mike Hughes for being Mike Hughes. We've known what Mike Hughes is for a long time. Like, we knew Mike Hughes is at best functional stopgap CB2. That's going to be a position, hopefully, that the Falcons will prioritize this offseason. We have watched them punt on that position all off season, for 5 straight off seasons in terms of upgrading. I don't know if they can do it again, but that will probably be another GM's job to do. Sorry, Terry. But the JD Bertrand, draft pick. It's tough look, JD, Captain America, looking Hail Hydra, he's on the wrong side of history after these last 2 weeks. So we'll see if JD can figure it out, or it's got to be Josh Woods to the rescue, or Ronnie effing Harrison has to come in and save the Atlanta Falcons season, because Divine Diablo's on IR, and it's probably not going to be a 4-week injury, knowing how this team goes when it comes to linebackers going on IR, because you're like, oh, that guy's just going to miss a month. And then 2 months later, he's still out. And Raheem's like, oh, he's working on his way coming back. Like, when, sir? When is he coming back? So, they got something to figure out. So, and now Jesse Bates is hurt with an ankle,
He didn't come back from the game.
We'll definitely get to that one, because
Good luck with that, my guy.
Right, exactly. Hold that thought, because we are definitely going to get to some of what the ills are on the defensive side of the ball that had as much to do with who was on the field as who ended up not being on the field. We'll unpack that next up. This episode of our Falcons Squad show is brought to you by GameTime. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use GameTime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. GameTime is fast, easy, and backed by the GameTime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up GameTime, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking all your favorite NFL games as low as $100. And honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download GameTime today. So, Jarvis, let's continue our conversation about the defensive side of the ball, because I know you were chomping at the bit for that one. And I don't blame you, because you look at a team in the Miami Dolphins that had a total of 20 points the first half of the first 7 games of the season. All of a sudden, they come here, and what had been considered before this game, statistically, the number 1 defense in all of the NFL, allowed them to drop 17 in the first half and then 17 more in the second half. I know that you've already talked a little bit about how some of that happened, but what else did you see that allowed Miami to pretty much own this defense the entire game?
It's also a lot of technical things that I just did not like, right? There was one particular play where James Pierce Jr. came in for Leonard Floyd, and it was the play that fourth down play that Raheem Morris had challenged, and James Pierce Jr. was in a 2-point stance on 4th and short. I mean, I know people. I mean, I'm old school with it. I'll howl at the moon like the old man that used to play defensive line, bruh. If it's 4th and short, get your behind down in the stands, because what are you trying to see? Whoop the man in front of you, dog. Like that's it. And then what proceeds to happen? He comes off the ball, gets his hands on the tight end, starts to try looking, and then all that tight end did was just shuffle his feet, where he put his butt right between James Pierce Jr. and the running back, and Ollie Gordon ended up getting the dog on first down. It just his shoulders got turned. All I saw was 2-7. That's all I saw. I was like, man, stuff like just little technical stuff like that is just the reason why I get so upset, because when a team just looks at film and says, oh, okay, run some counter, we go heavy, get into 2-back, 22 personnel, 21 personnel. Yeah, we can get some things going with this. They went to that when they felt like it. They just, okay, we're gonna run these little screens. They were getting under these screens, getting nice matchups. And Mike McDaniel was doing it. He was out there cooking. It got to a point where I feel like Mike McDaniel was just digging for, like, let me see if the doggone play. Hold on, let me get that play right there. I know we ain't ran it since 23, but let me go and get that one. See that one run. Let me put that one out on film to get somebody else something to think about. Just stuff like that. I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But yes, it was just the technical things, just getting off blocks. Brandon Doyle has made some really good plays, got up celebrating, all that stuff. Yeah, man, welcome to the party. I ain't seen you since doggone the first two games of the season. What happened to Brandon Doyle? He's been out of the rotation for the most part. So it's just stuff like that where it's just something about this team I just don't understand. It's hard to put my finger on it. Like after the first half, I was just like, it's hard to even explain in a football manner what's going on with this team, because it was so awkward. It was just so weird just to see Mike McDaniel's a team, Tua Tagovailoa just out here just comfortable. Like a guy that throws that many picks he had 10 picks. I think he has at least 10 picks on the season as of right now. And we're 7 games in now. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't behoove you to throw some pressures. You did that in the first drive. It looked great. That was perfect. For getting up, celebrating, having a good old time with the sack. But what happened to it? I ain't see it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was it.
I mean, what?
Yeah. Yeah, no more sacks.
You're not getting there with guys just lining up with 4. You're not getting there.
Right.
Guys they just aren't doing it for whatever reason. You want to come up with excuse you want to come up with. So you got to manufacture it. I'm sorry. I got to go down swinging. I can't just let you carve me up like that touchdown run by Jalen Waddle. So what would you rather do? You rather get for him to run a 20-yard fade route and him to catch it 60 yards downfield, or you want to let him catch a 5-yard slant and go? I bet you what, with Tua's arm, I'm gonna force him to make that doggone 60-yard throw versus that doggone 5-yard throw and let Jalen Waddell, who's a world-class sprinter, take that bad boy to the house.
Yeah.
So it was just too many things that I saw some things that I liked, but they didn't do enough of that. And and I don't understand why.
So when you kind of look at that, much the same for you, Aaron, and I know we kind of talked about some of it before, but I think Jarvis made a great point about maybe the technical aspects of it from what the players did or did not do that literally kind of make you say, okay, I saw it once or twice, but why not the whole game? Like, again, I know it's a little bit hard to put kind of a finger on it from a technical perspective, especially because, hey, we need time to look at the film ourselves. But I mean, what gives from what you saw today? What else gives for this defense?
Well, I know for several games we sat here talking about the run defense, particularly when they were in their nickel fronts and they couldn't stop the run. And the last 2 weeks they've been in base defense and they couldn't stop the run. And they were very successful stopping the run out of base the first like 5 games of the season. And then they just have been getting their butts kicked the last couple of weeks. And, there's really no excuse for that. That's just like you just, as Jarvis said, you're not getting off blocks. That's just you getting your butts kicked there, right? At this stage. And, as Jarvis pointed out, like we saw this pass rush really get off to a hot start the first 2 games of the season. But since then, when it's come down to a 4-man rush, it's been pretty middling. They've fallen back down to earth and being that, average at best Falcons pass rush. Now, as we've said many times,
Not
if
even
you're Falcons pass rush, average is a major improvement over what we've seen over the last 2 decades. But given the expectations for how this defense got off in terms of their start this season, it's a big step backward for what we saw the first 2 games of the season. And, they've been heavily relying on their blitz to get home these last couple of weeks when they got pressure, and this defense looks good when they have been able to get home. They did that against the Bills. They did not do that successfully against the 49ers. They didn't do it against the Dolphins. And, part of the challenge is we've seen the last 2 weeks, teams just go to quick passing game. You saw the screens. You saw some of these quick throws, as Jarvis said, these short and intermediate throws, because it's like, okay, the blitz is coming. These are situations. So if you're Jeff Ulbrich, like either you're just going to have to lean all the way into the blitz and just basically like, we're just going to live and die by the sword. And if, they carve us up, then so be it. But like sitting back and playing bend but don't break style of defense is not really for us from a, stylistic identity standpoint. Or you're just going to have to, I guess, clean it all up. But, I think it's going to be a challenge because, you can play press coverage with AJ Terrell, right? Where you want to get those cornerbacks up on those wide receivers, jam them at the line of scrimmage. If they're going to try to get the ball out quickly, you try to disrupt the timing of those plays. But the problem is, again, not to put it all on Mike Hughes, but like that's not really Mike Hughes's game. That's not really any other cornerback on this team's game at this point in time. And so like it's going to be a challenge for this team, whether we're talking about the blitz. And I feel like that blitz and that pressure has kind of hit the wall. And that's a typical thing that you see in the NFL where the blitz is very effective in the first, month of the season, and then offenses start to kind of figure it out. And then as the season wears on, this has been true for, 2-3 decades in the NFL. The blitz becomes less and less effective. And if that's what the Falcons defense is going to have to live by, I think you're going to continue to see performances like we saw this past Sunday, where this defense is not going to look as good, because I think teams are looking at that Bills game and be like, okay, this is what the Falcons do. And the 49ers and Dolphins, I think, have made effective adjustments against it. And until the Falcons can find a fix, whether it's players playing better and executing what they're asked, or Jeff Ulbrich making schematic adjustments, I think you're going to continue to see, defensive performances like we've seen the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you got to wonder, Jarvis, as Free was talking about it, again, I'll ask this question that I asked on the offensive side of the ball. Let me ask it about defense as well. With this performance from the Falcons defense today, do you feel like it was more on the fault of the coaching staff or lack of execution by the players? And again, we already know there's enough blame to go around. What I'm asking is, where does more of the fault lie?
Just feel more on the defense side of football. I feel like it's the players. Yeah. Because this is the style that you said that you played with. And we've seen them play like that this year. And like I said, the one thing that I asked, Jeff Ulbrich coming into the season about, okay, what's going on with this two-gapping thing? Because I don't see no guys with no size that can do that. He said, it's not going to be, they're not, and he told me that you weren't going to do, you're not going to necessarily do things like they did last year, which we saw a lot of it last year. Mm-hmm. We might use it from time to time. Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of it this year. And I don't think we should be seeing that much, because this is supposed to be attacking style scheme, guys getting upfield, getting off blocks, rushing the passer on the way to the stopping the run on the way to the quarterback. You hear those terms thrown out there. Aaron has used that before. And I just don't see guys getting off blocks. I saw Doris a couple times do it. Really, it looked really good. I was like, oh, okay, that's how you stop the run. Get off the block. Like, that is an amazing concept, right? You should be able to do that. Okay. And when you have guys, a lot of guys, and I used the example of James Pierce Jr. earlier, and a lot of guys on the interior of the defensive line are doing this too, which is not good, in my humble opinion. Like, you got guys trying to get up and see. No, man, offensive linemen not going to let you go. They're going to, wherever you're trying to see and think the ball going, that's where they're going to take you. And guess what? Devon Etche ain't going to do. All right, okay, my offensive lineman went this way, I'm going to go this way. And guess what? You still being blocked, and he got up to the second level. And guess who he going to face on the second level? Trash. Mm-hmm. So where do you think you're going to end up? The third level. So guess how many yards that is? 7, 8.
Okay. All right, Jarvis. Appreciate you.
All right, sorry guys.
Very pregnant pause there at the end.
Right, because I'm like, okay, Free, wrap us up. What do you think? Is it the player execution?
I'm getting frustrated, man.
Yeah.
My heart,
no, you know what? One of the comments. No, one of the comments in our comment section literally said, I applaud the three of you because I am so frustrated that I can't even talk. The fact that you guys can get through a show. And hey, it's frustrating for us as well because we want to bring a quality show to you guys talking about wins. We don't like having to produce a show to talk about this kind of performance either. The fact that, Jarvis may have seen one or two things, maybe Free saw one or two things that they like. Trust, we don't like having to have this conversation either where we're saying, hey, Free, so on both sides of the ball, dare I say in all phases of the game, was it more player execution that's at fault for what we saw today, or was it more coaching strategy? But Free, here we are. So on the defensive side of the ball for you, was it more of lack of player execution, or was it the scheme Jeff Ulbrich dialed up?
I'm going to lean today towards player execution. Yeah. But if this happens again, at that point, to me, it's going to really be on the coaching. As I said, you have two massive liabilities on your defense the last couple of weeks. That's the cornerback Mike Hughes. That's JD Bertrand. You got to figure out something. So whether that's benching those guys, whether that's replacing those guys, whether that's adjusting how you scheme it up, like you don't have it. You don't get a third strike, right? You got 2 strikes now against you where offenses have gone after the weaknesses in your defense and they're picking it apart. Now you have to make an adjustment. So if this happens again, if this happens against the Patriots and Drake May's out here going off, then it's going to be coaching. But today it's scheme or it's execution. It's player execution. They'll take the brunt of the blame because of all the reasons we've talked about, not getting off blocks, not making tackles, not covering guys, all that stuff. But moving forward, it's going to be Jeff Ulbrich taking a bigger share of the blame moving forward if they can't fix this.
Yeah. And it's not going to get any easier because the injuries are starting to pile up, both the ones that the Falcons came into this game with and the ones, one of which is very troubling that they walked away from this game having to deal with. So we'll talk about that in the look ahead. This episode of our Falcons Squad show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel. Again, that's FanDuel that's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Aaron, what a laundry list that the Falcons walked into this game today with the inactives: Drake London, Michael Penix Jr., Jalen Walker, Billy Bowman Jr., Zach Harrison amongst the inactives. Then into the game, you finally get Storm Norton back, only for him to go down again with injury. Then you're wondering, as Jarvis has told us on multiple shows leading up to this one, what's going on with Jessie Bates III, and you're hoping that it's not some lingering, some nagging injury, but alas, he goes down today to an ankle injury. And if you guys see me kind of looking away from the screen, it's because I'm checking our Twitter feed just to see if there are any updates injury-wise. But ultimately, if we go by where they are today, Aaron, with all of the inactives due to injury, coupled with the injury that took place today, let's start on the offensive side. I mean, what will the answer be for Zac Robinson? I mean, he just keeps being down O-lineman.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to figure something out. This was a wide receiver-driven offense last year. That was the brunt of their success, along with Bijan Robinson. And because of injuries at that position, their offense has not really looked the part of what we thought it would be. Again, that's not the only reason for it, but you have Drake London missing this particular Sunday. We'll see what happens with the offensive line. But as I said at the top, it feels like they've hit a wall there these last couple of games. And so, I know we talked about the early bye being a positive because they were dealing with some injuries at that time. You got some guys coming back healthy, and it looked great against the Bills. But the challenge with that early bye was you now had 13 straight games after that point, and attrition is a thing in the NFL. Yeah. And the Falcons are currently experiencing that. And as we watch with the 49ers, where everybody overlooked that 49er team and like, oh, well, Nick Bosa, no Fred Warner, no Brandon Ayuk. Oh, this is going to be an easy win for the Falcons. And the 49ers came out with a way to win that football game and absolutely played well. A similar thing with the Dolphins this week. And so, the Falcons have to follow a blueprint from their former coaching friends and Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel. Right, they need to go and find somebody else on that 2016 offensive coaching staff to maybe come in here and help them out, because those guys have figured out how to, keep their team running along despite all the setbacks from an injury standpoint. And the Falcons have yet to figure that out. And if they can't do that, then, they're not a well-coached football team. But I'm not telling anybody who's listening to us that something they didn't already know.
Yeah. And Aaron, I got to agree with you on that one, because as much as we talk about, the devastation of losing a Divine Diablo for an inordinate amount of time, as we know. And then, Jarvis, you look at Jalen Walker on that inactive list again. We don't know when he's coming back. We don't know when Billy Bowman is coming back. And who knows what the severity of the injury to Jessie Bates III is. We're checking our Twitter feed for our analysts from our other squad shows who are still there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But, Jarvis, that's the storyline for so many teams in the league right now. We're at the point of almost the midpoint of the season. So this is what you can expect. You have to have the ability to, on some level, coach, even if it's just coach competitively. Like maybe you won't win all the games because of all the pieces that you don't have, but you got to be able to coach your way through it. And somehow Zac Robinson is going to have to figure it out, because in a minute, it feels like it's not just going to be his O-lineman that where there's a concern, but you still got to wonder, have we seen 100% Darnell Mooney? And what do we know? Because Drake London, until we got a late questionable injury report status from him yesterday, we didn't think he was going to be a part of the conversation, but who knows now?
Yeah, it's a lot. Not to give this team any type of excuse as to the way they played today, but when you think about these injuries going forward, Freeman made a great point about at some point you got to make adjustments, right? You got to adjust what you would like to do or what you want to do, especially when you have the type of injuries that they've had on the defense side of the football, and then not having your number one wide receiver in the game today. So you got to figure out, okay, if Drake is not in here, hey, how about we line up 7 at wide receiver and do something, like figure it out. I know there are plenty of packages, because I've been seeing a lot of it. They've gone 12 personnel. They got doggone Charlie Warner line up next to Michael Penix. in previous games, and they had Bijan Robinson in the slot. Those type of looks are what gets the defense thinking. The defense didn't have to think today. They knew what was coming.
At all.
So, if they can't make the necessary adjustments coming into games, knowing what they actually have, the guys that you mentioned, Drake, we don't know if he's out for another game. What is his offense going to look like? Because especially if they can't run the football, because we're going on 2 games right now that the run has been stopped. It has been stopped, and you have no answer.
Right. And then
whatsoever.
And then you look to the defensive side of the ball, and much the same. Like Aaron, Jeff Ulbrich is going to have to start figuring it out because his linebacker core is getting thinner by the week. And that's for starters. That takes nothing away from the cog, if not the strongest cog in the wheel in your secondary, in Jesse Bates now being injured.
Yeah, you don't have another guy that does Jesse Bates stuff, right? Xavier Watts does, what Xavier Watts was brought in to do was complement Jesse Bates, right? You want Xavier Watts playing that deep center field so Jesse Bates can play and be aggressive, closer to the line of scrimmage, jump the crossing routes, do all the things, and be the gambler. We won't say cheater. We'll say the gambler that Jesse Bates is out there and making plays. We haven't seen him that result in him making plays, but he's been good in coverage. He's been suspect in tackling, as Jarvis pointed out last week on the show. And now you don't have that. And, are you going to ask Xavier Watts to come down and have that role in this defense and be that sort of lockdown cover guy, be that sort of, guy playing closer to the line of scrimmage? Now, maybe he could thrive in that role, but then who's going to be the deep center fielder? Is it going to be Jordan Fuller? If for darn sure it's not going to be DeMarco Hellams. They put DeMarco Hellams out there playing deep. That's 60-yard touchdowns left and right, ladies and gentlemen. So you're going to have Xavier Watts playing deep and then have DeMarco Hellams be a box safety, or Jordan Fuller is going to have to come out there and do, again, people can sit here and criticize Jesse Bates' performance all year long, and it hasn't been the sort of standard Jesse Bates season that we were all expecting him to have. But this is a devastating blow to this defense. It's going to have to change how they play, because if he's missing time, they're not going to be able to play the same style of defense that they've been able to play at a high level for most of the season. And their safeties, while Fuller and Hellams are capable NFL players, they do very specific things. Yeah. And if you can't allow them to fit into a defense that allows them to do those specific things, and you're trying to ask them to do things that they're not good at, it is going to get exposed at that position time and time again. So that's going to be a huge challenge for this Falcon team if Jesse Bates missed time.
Yeah. And Jarvis, Aaron, before we wrap up, let's just be real about it. Yes, there were some things that were questionable about Zac Robinson's approach to this game. There were some things that were questionable about Jeff Ulbrich's approach to this game. But Raheem Morris is the head coach. And so we can't not talk about the fact that he oversaw what we saw or didn't see today.
Yeah, I think Raheem, I don't say faith. That's a strong word.
Right.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to use that word. My confidence in him being the head coach of this team is starting to wane. So, because when you think about just the way they lose these games,
yeah,
like I know people were upset about the 49ers game, but I can kind of take those type of L's, right? Like I get it. I understand it from a football aspect of it. I get those type of a loss like that. The Panthers loss, I don't get it. And loss like this, because this was worse than the Panthers loss. Let me just go on the record to say that. This was worse. This was way worse than that Panthers game. To lose games like this, got a chance to go over 500. Got a chance to really get a win at home, because that's the only place you've been playing well on.
Yeah.
And now you're about to get ready to go on the road against the Patriots. And they're playing some doggone good football. You talk about narratives. Drake May. Oh my gosh. The Colts. Come on. You're going to be playing at 9:30 in the morning. I don't know what team going to show up for that game. Your body's going to tell you it's 9:30 in the morning, you playing a football game? I don't know. And the head coach is supposed to balance all of that stuff out. Games like this. I'm not saying that, I think Raheem Morris made a good point last week. When he was talking about that loss against 49ers. He said you got to find a way to win those ugly games. But what happens when these ugly games start to become more frequent? That falls on you as a head coach. Not Zac Robinson, not Jeff Ulbrich, but that falls on him as a head coach, because that lets me know that in some way, form, or fashion, the game plan ain't right and the players aren't ready to play. Or it's just, and as a head coach, that's what you're responsible for.
And that's what I was thinking too, Free, just before you wrap us up. In addition to it not falling all on Zac Robinson or Jeff Ulbrich, it's not all also on the players, but Raheem Morris, you're going to have to get them to play better, because like we said, there's still some responsibility that they have, but you're the guy they're looking to help right the ship.
Yeah, we've seen this too many times over the last year and a half with Raheem, where it just doesn't seem like this team is ready to play. And we can talk about Penix being a late scratch or Drake being a late scratch and Kirk getting ready, and all we can come up with a litany of excuses, but it's just been too often over this last year and a half where the Falcons have refused to show up to the stadium, and it's been reflected in the scoreboard. And it's 2 times too many this season. In your most winnable games, you've laid these eggs against Carolina, against the Dolphins. Can't wait till they play the 1-9 Jets and see what Falcons team shows up for that one later on this season, or whatever that is going to be. So looking forward to that one. That's going to be an epic show. Please tune in. Make sure Locked On Sports Atlanta is your first listen each and every Sunday. But all that to say, it's this team is not ready to play these weeks, and that's a reflection of the head coach. And it's simple as that. And until this team can go out there, as you guys said, you can lose games like you can to the 49ers if you're a competitive team and you're like, oh, well, we just didn't make the plays in the final 2 minutes that we needed to make to win the football game. That's fine. Going up against a playoff caliber team. But when you go up against a non-playoff caliber team like the Miami Dolphins, who are probably going to be picking in the top 5 in this year's draft, and you get so thoroughly dominated like this, inexcusable, basically.
Yeah, inexcusable indeed. Well, thanks to our everydayers, especially for making this Falcon Squad show today your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, for more post-game coverage shortly. We'll see you next time.